From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody. We're hanging out for another week in Janelle Saban's hometown of Niagara Falls. It's week number 2 here at the Rapids Bowling Center. Another action-packed episode of Beat the Champ. And we've got our guy, Mike Zarcone, making his 29th appearance on the show. Our most successful bowler. He won last week. He'll face 3 new challengers this week, Sue.
Right, and we have 3 very similar styles coming out to face Mike Zarcone. So I'm kind of predicting that he's either going to struggle with their ball reaction and not being able to keep up with the scoring pace, or he's just going to run right over him. So we'll see what's going to happen here.
She's predicting Mike Zarcone to run right through another week of shows, right? Really going out on a limb, isn't she?
Yeah, but Mike has a great track record with Beat the Champ, so you really don't know what he's going to pull off.
All right, well, let's find out if going out on a limb proves to be correct for Sue Novoitsky. It's another week of Beat the Champ at the Rapids Bowling Center in Niagara Falls. Let's get rolling. Our first match features Mike Zarcone taking on Kevin Smith. Kevin making his 3rd appearance on the show. Saw him last time in March of 2018 up at Transit Lanes, and where he won a couple of matches up there. And Kevin's a very interesting story. He's from Syracuse, but he has now moved to Western New York, and great bowler in Syracuse, and now on his way to becoming one of the top bowlers in Western New York. And here we go, week number 2 at the Rapids Bowling Center, and Kevin gets us off, started off with a strike.
Yeah, Kevin's got a high rev rate. Like his ball has a lot of pop going into the pins, but he manages to keep it very, very straight on line. So he's not opening up the lane a whole lot. He's keeping it down and in, but with a lot of power.
And a strike from Mike Zarcone to match things off here in the first frame. Mike Zarcone making his 29th appearance, more than anyone, here on Beat the Champ as we enter our 4th year of bringing this show back. 29 wins and 19 losses for Mike Zarcone. The wins and the losses by far more than anybody else in the history, at least the new history of this show. And again, Mike has become sort of the guy to beat on this show. If you want to be good on this show, you've got to prove yourself against Mike Zarcone, and it's a tribute to what a great bowler Mike is, not just on this show, but anywhere that he bowls, but particularly on this show.
There's one thing that Mike does not want to do, and that is get the ball in. He does not. He has all the room in the world to the right. He himself said that the gutter's like a bumper here. The more you throw it out there, the more it's going to bounce off of it and come back. So that one he got well inside his target. That is it's one of those things where you say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, you do it.
Yep, well, something to watch for. Again, I think we feel like we all know exactly how Mike bowls, how well he bowls, what he likes to do.
I know. Everyone watching probably knew exactly what happened there. Wow.
And Kevin Smith off to a good start with strikes in his first 2 frames. 29 years old, lives now in Clarence, New York. An IT programmer is the profession for Kevin Smith, as you get an early look at Janelle Saban and the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. A 230 average for Kevin Smith as he bowls a couple nights a week here in Western New York at Tonawanda Lanes and at Transit Lanes, as he has sort of ingratiated himself into the bowling community here in Western New York after his recent move from Central New York. Good start, 3 strikes. I got to say, it's a little. I remember the last time there was a bowler with a white bowling ball on this show.
Yeah, they haven't been. There haven't been too many white bowling balls out there, and
it's a little bit of an unusual look as you see it heading down the lane.
And I was going to say, there used to be a white quantum, and that would be old technology. And I just saw that ball roll up through the ball return, and it is a white quantum.
There you go.
Wow.
So right now, this is shaping up as a pretty interesting match with the veteran expertise of Mike Zarcone and the youthful enthusiasm and aggressiveness of Kevin Smith, and we're off to a good start through the first 3 frames.
Different styles, definitely, approaching this differently.
And that one sort of ran out of steam as it hit the final couple of feet of the lanes there, and it leaves Mike with an interesting challenge there. 3 pins remaining.
It's as ugly as this is. It's very makeable. You just make the baby split, and got a real
kick
good
the
shot
pin
at
out and
converting
take the 10
this.
out.
Yeah.
Let's see if Mike can do it. If anybody can, it's Mike.
There you
Oh,
go.
how about that? Wow. Very impressive. And a nice round of applause from the folks here at the Rapids Bowling Center. That's greatness just in one frame right there.
And he needs every bit of it to stay in this match because Kevin seems to have this figured out right now.
Kevin, speaking of figuring out, had some successful qualifying. Obviously, that's why he's on the show. Bowled a 290 in one of the qualifying matches. So he's starting to figure out the Rapids Bowling Center, and he is 4 for 4 to get things started here.
I think he thought he got that one in a little bit, and it set up just perfectly.
Kevin wanted to make sure we said hello to his mom, his dad, and his sister back home in Syracuse. They'll be watching the show and cheering him on from down the thruway. And again, that's where he's from. Moved here for professional reasons, and you know, it's kind of one of those things that's such a close-knit community in the bowling world here in Western New York. All of a sudden, somebody decides to pop their way into Western New York. Like, who's that guy? Where'd that guy come from?
But we've talked about it before. Bowling is community. You can come from anywhere and go in. Ooh, that was way inside.
You can tell he kind of twisted his wrist a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, Kevin's relying on a certain amount of momentum to generate that ball speed, but he can get ahead of himself. And in that case, his feet definitely got fast. He got ahead of himself and he pulled the ball, which is going to happen if you get too quick.
Consistently over 18 miles per hour with that ball down the lanes here. Oh, and he misses the spare pickup. So that's a big open frame in the 5th for Kevin Smith on what should have been an easy spare pickup.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
The 29 wins for Mike Zarcone here on the show are 8 more than the second most successful bowler. That's Chuck Jagodzinski, who we'll see on next week's show. The 28 appearances are 6 more than Chuck has made on the show. And even the 19 losses are 6 more than what Chuck has done. But that just speaks to the consistency and the greatness of Mike Zarcone and how often he is on the show. And I think, let's talk about Mike and Chuck together, because between the two of them, they've combined for 50 wins. Wow. And then to get to 50 wins for the next group, there's a 6 or 7 win drop off to the next group of Jeremy Zimmerman, Dana Wojtowicz, Tyler Molina, Matt Zazowski. So it really has become sort of a 2-man show a little bit here between Chuck and Mike. Although, to be honest with you, I don't remember the last time Chuck and Mike bowled against each other. That may happen next month.
I'll bet they do.
That may happen next month if Mike keeps winning.
Well, Mike's still got his job cut out for him, because even with that open, he is still 6 pins down if they continue to strike. But right at this moment, there's a 6-pin difference.
And a good follow-up after the open for Kevin Smith with the strike.
Exactly. Fast 8.
And this time it's a 4-7 leave on the left-hand side.
Yep, that fast 8 is a pocket hit where it looks good, and then those 2 pins are still standing there staring at you.
22 career 300 games for Kevin Smith, and a high 855 series that he bowled in Syracuse a number of years ago. And there's a good 7-frame spare pickup. Don't forget, qualifying is underway for next month's series of shows. From right here, again, we're going to go back to back. We love it here so much at the Rapids Bowling Center. We're going to pack it. We're going to put everything off into the side and keep it all packed up here.
Well, technically, this is the end of our first season, even though it's the beginning of January, because we end up with 13 weeks with the 5-week months.
So the top qualifier in the round of 24 for next month's qualifying here at Rapids wins a television value of $500 from Dirt Cheap TV. will ring around the 10 there for Mike Zarcone, so he'll need to pull off the spare here in the 7th frame. Qualifying is underway now. Go to the Beat the Champ Facebook page for the details and all the times on the qualifying. You've got plenty of chances to do it, although we're running out of chances, right? This is the final weekend.
This is the second week of, it's the second week of qualifying, but there's still Sunday 12, 2, and 4, Monday 6 and 8 p.m., Thursday 8 p.m., and then again next Sunday. So yeah, there's still plenty of squads. And again, we got to remember to remind the women to show up for this, because not only are they in this event, in the regular Beat the Champ 3-week show, there was also a special women's event the 4th week here, January 26th. It will be taped. That will feature the women of Western New York. So good chance of making the show as long as you come here and try out. There's many squads to choose from.
Spare in the 8th frame for Mike Zarcone. And as we've sort of chronicled, not just last week and this week, but in the past, this is a fun place to come to. The scores are always really good and high, and the bowling is terrific. It's an easy place to get to right off of Niagara Falls Boulevard, not far from the airport here, not far from the 190 or the Outlet Mall in Niagara Falls, and it's a quick, easy drive up.
Yep. Right, yep. And the bar has a nice choice of beers, and they have food. I mean, this is really one of those centers that are very, very family friendly, or you can come here for a night out as well. And the atmosphere is just, it's just new and trendy. Yep.
Well, the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard's getting a little tight here, isn't it?
8-pin difference, but this is a big shot right here, because he posted up a strike, which is what he needed to do. That's the first person to get a double.
And there's a strike.
He's going to get a commanding lead, which looks like Kevin.
That's 2 in a row for Kevin Smith in the 9th frame here. So now Mike is going to have to finish strong.
He's in a must-strike situation here. He's going to have to throw all of them to challenge Kevin in the 10th frame.
That starting off with those first 4 strikes really set Kevin Smith up for what's going on right now. And there's a big pressure responding strike from Mike Zarcone. So he'll slide over to lane 29 to finish out the 10th frame here and put the pressure on Kevin Smith. Mike looking for his 30th win here on Beat the Champ. Didn't like that one. Didn't like leaving that 4-pin.
Yep, that's going to be enough for Kevin to win. He's going to need count, but he doesn't need much, and Mike knows it. It's all over but throwing the balls.
So Mike Zarcone's very brief win streak will come to an end at 1, and always a surprise when Mike doesn't rattle off a whole bunch of wins in a row. That's what he's been good at, and it's always a surprise when Mike just doesn't flat out win. But Kevin Smith bowled very well, and I think the one thing we know about Mike Zarcone is a pretty good chance we're going to see him again next month to try to add to those leading win totals. And that ending with a strike at least is a good exclamation point on a 208 on the board for Mike Zarcone. Not anywhere near the kind of score that we're used to seeing from him. So Kevin Smith will finish things out here, needs some good count, and that will clinch a victory and advance him on to match number 2 against Rocket Rob Piccoli. And a nice strike there. Well, you talk about next match, a couple of guys that blow the ball through the end of the alley. We might get a couple 20-mile-an-hour throws in the next match. You're going to want to stick around for that one. So it's a win for Kevin Smith as he gets his 3rd overall victory here on Beat the Champ with a win over Mike Zarcone. We'll talk to Mike and get you ready for match number 2 when Sue and I return to Niagara Falls. More Beat the Champ right after this. Are you guys in the bowling community here in Western New York going to get together and see if you can't get Kevin to move back to Syracuse?
Hey, he's a good bowler. You know, he deserves it. He bowled great.
You struggled with the left side lane, number 29. How come?
Yeah, left lane got me. It started to hook a little bit. I tried to move in a little bit, but it still hooked on me. I was snake bit in that game.
All right, you have a cot set up in the back room here. You're just going to nap and get ready for next month's shows?
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. It's always good to see our most successful Beat the Champ bowler, Mike Zarcone, here on the show. A pretty good chance we're going to see him again next month. We know we're going to see Kevin Smith again because his next match against Rocket Rob Piccoli is coming up next. Match number 2, Kevin Smith coming off that win over Mike Zarcone against Rocket Rob Piccoli. Someone alert the boards on the lanes here that you're going to get a little bit of rough going here. Be a little bruising going to go on between these two guys who throw the ball hard.
Right, like we again talked to when we opened the show, is that Mike Zarcone was the only person who really played the lanes different. Our next 3 bowlers are all very similar in their style, their speed, and their down and in projection.
So Kevin Smith, who started his last match with 4 consecutive strikes to really set the tone against Mike Zarcone, gets started with a strike here. That was 18 miles an hour. We'll keep you up to date on the mile per hour marks because I think that's going to be kind of fun to watch, particularly with Rob Piccoli. We've seen him on our show. This is his 6th time, 2 wins and 5 losses. We last saw him at Billy Lane's down in Bradford where he had a win and a loss back in November, but they don't call him Rocket for any other reason than he throws it hard.
I'm looking for the ball speed, but I don't see it.
It clicked on and clicked right off. So I'll make sure if you see me staring up, you'll know that I'm looking to see what the ball speed is.
What's interesting is that they do throw the ball relatively similar. They both have a lot of ball speed. They have good rotation, but Rob is way to the right. He's like playing almost the gutter. He's so far to the right.
Yeah, you can see it pretty obviously there.
So I think that there's a difference in rev rate there, and but still lots of ball speed on both of them.
A little over 18 miles an hour on that.
And they're both
throw.
About the same because I think Kevin was 18.05.
And I don't think Rob actually rocketed that one. You'll know it. You'll see it when he wants to really put some muscle.
He's finessing it.
Strike and a spare in the first 2 frames for Rocket Rob. And now Kevin Smith, 29 years old, from Clarence, New York, a native of Syracuse, recently moved to Western New York in the last year or so. By the way, we failed to mention that in our last match, and I know Mike Zarcone not happy that he did not win it, but Mike just recently had a birthday, so we want to wish Mike happy birthday, 51 years old now, for Mike Zarcone, and hopefully that got his year off to a good start, and he'll come back and work on the bowling part here soon.
A little extra birthday money for him. And, see him again next month on the Sports Shot. So the Sports Shot will be, we may see a different group of bowlers because you'll tend to lean towards the bowlers that have seen Sports Shots before, because you have to have a certain comfort level. You have to trust it. If you're bowling on a Sports Shot, you can't say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't miss right. You really have to just trust in your game, and those are the people that rise to the top on Sports Shot.
So what you're saying is that even though we're going to be at the same bowling center, and you could say, well, the guys who were successful in making the show this time, and a guy like Kevin who's been successful, and Ricky Zanone that was successful on last week's show, you might not see any of them, and there may not be any carryover whatsoever.
Well, chances are in a Sports Shot, this ball speed would actually be a deterrent. And we may see them on the show, but what would be interesting is for people who maybe DVR the show, tape it, or watch it on YouTube, to watch the first week of the next month's shows versus one of the weeks of this month's shows, and see what bowlers deal with, because our obstacles as you're bowling are invisible, because you will look at the lane and you will see no difference between next month and this month, so you can't really see your obstacles. You have to throw a ball and determine where they are.
So why are the power bowlers like these two guys at more of a handicap in the sports shot next month than they are now?
Well, normally you have to bring down your ball speed. It's very hard to over.
Which they don't want to do generally.
No.
Unless they have to.
No, yeah, you all have everyone has a natural game, and so this is probably where their comfort level is. But to get to this level, you have to be able to back off it. Rob will be the first person to tell you. Remember when we had him throw as hard as he could, and it was like 30 miles an hour?
Yeah.
And he can bring it down too. So, you know, you have to have that ability in your arsenal, or you're going to be very one-dimensional. So it depends how much they get to see those things now. Because if you look at where these guys are bowling, like Kevin bowls at Transit and Tonawanda, those conditions are very similar to this place here. So all three of those houses are going to play very, very similar. So he might not have the great shot right there too. He just might not have, you know, the ability to slow down his shot, play different areas of the lane, because all three of the houses that he bowls at regularly play very, very close to the same.
After strikes in the first 3 frames, that ring 10 will leave him a spare opportunity here in frame number 4 for Kevin Smith. And boy, sliding a little left there, but he was able to nudge it enough to get it.
And you notice he did change balls and didn't give up too much. This ball's rolling great, but he is a little deeper on the lane than he was with the white ball.
So there's the updated Castellano Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard, and a slide over to lane 29 for Kevin Smith. And a nice little slide over to take out the 10-pin, and a strike at just under 18 miles per hour on the throw, and that's 4 strikes and a spare in the first 5 frames for Kevin Smith, putting the pressure on Rocket Rob Piccoli.
Yep, he's down 20 pins right now early in the match, and it's going to be more if he doesn't strike here, so now's the time.
That's a big one. That's a double for Rocket Rob. Strikes in the 4th and 5th frame, so 3 of the first 5.
This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
Yep, 3 in a row. Rob has a bunch of friends here cheering him on. That's 3 in a row for him. Kevin Smith brought a bunch of friends with him as well, too, to cheer him on, and that's great.
Well, I want to mention real quick on this show, again, that next month we're going to be starting a tip of the week, and the focus next month will be on equipment. So you see the different bowling balls, you see what people are doing. If anybody at home and if any viewers have a question, please send it to post it on Facebook, and we'll address any equipment questions that may come our way.
That's the Beat the Champ Facebook page, where you can put your suggestions in, and of course check on all the details about time and availability for next month's qualifying. Go back and watch shows and comment with other bowlers in West New York. Best place to stay connected to the show is the Beat the Champ Facebook page. 7th frame now for Kevin Smith. He's working on a double. Make that 3 in a row. Rob Piccoli's 33 years old, from Kenmore, New York, produce manager for Tops Friendly Markets, 226 overall average, just about one of the busiest bowlers in Western New York. Monday night airport lanes, Wednesday night transit, Thursday transit, Friday the Broadway Sports Center, and Saturday in the Bowling Proprietors Association of Western New York Travel League. So that's what, 5 days a week that he's bowling.
Wow.
Gotta love the enthusiasm for bowling in Western New York, and a guy like Piccoli.
Big shot there
4
for
in a row.
him. Keeping himself just within that 10-pin deficit, keeping it close. 2nd
place overall finish in the 2016-2017 Buffalo Bowlers Tour for Rob Piccoli. So he really has bowled at a very high level, and been a very consistent guy around Western New York, and starting to be much more consistent here on our show. 2nd time in the last 3 months that we've seen him. 8th frame now for Rocket Rob. That is 5 in a row. And we're not talking quite as much about the speed and the power that we normally do, because I don't know that that's necessarily what's the key to success right now for these guys.
It is and it isn't, but they're both at the same pace.
Right.
So it's not like one is giving it an advantage, because they're both throwing in about the same, miles per hour.
Yeah, right about 18 miles per hour, consistently right in that mark.
Oh, that's a big shot right there.
Lots of spinning pins there, but not one of them would take the 4 down.
Because what you want to do here is you don't want the ball to start up on you too soon. You want the ball to get down the lane, because the back ends are kind of clean and you get a lot of movement in the back. So if you see both these guys are really straight for the front of the lane, and the ball's not picking up, and their ball speed helps them do that, and their ball choices will help them do that. But definitely a key here is to keep it from hooking too early. So that's why you're seeing these guys with the ball speed and the very down and in projection. We'll see the same with Jeff Pullman in the next match. This tightened this match up quite a bit by not striking in that spot, where Rob almost has a 1-pin advantage.
I was saying the fact that Rob's had 5 strikes in a row has allowed him to come back from a couple of spares early on.
He's covered the 10 pins, and then he's got that
big strike for Kevin in the 9th frame.
Count's going to be very important now, because now these guys are very, very close in pin count.
So let's see if Rocket Rob can continue this hot streak of 5 in a row and finish strong and put a lot of pressure on Kevin Smith, who will get the final throws.
Well, Rob can go throw the next 4 and shut Kevin right out. But anything less than that, Kevin will have a chance.
That's 6 in a row. Winner of this match will take on Jeff Pullman in our next match to wrap up week number 2 here at the Rapids Bowling Center. And then we've got a good lineup of bowlers coming your way on next week's show, including Chuck Jagosinski, Chris Labiak, and Tom Kress. So let's see what Rob can do with the 10th frame. How about a 7th consecutive strike? At just under 18 miles per hour.
Wow, this is close. So another strike here will get him the win. A strike here will get him the win, but a 9 spare, we have the possibility of a tie.
Wow.
But it's going to make Kevin have to throw all 3 of them. So
all right.
This is a very tight match, but a strike here will put it away.
So let's see what Rob can do. Second ball, the 10th frame. And there's the strike he needs to clinch the victory. It's Rocket Rob Piccoli that will knock off Kevin Smith, and that will send Rob to our final match of the day. So a good performance between these 2 outstanding bowlers. Rocket Rob comes up with a big win. We'll talk to Kevin Smith and get you ready for match number 3 when Sue and I return to Niagara Falls right after this. 269 to 254 in one of our best matches of the month. Unfortunately for you, Kevin, it was Rob that comes up with the win. Take me through that match, and take me through a match where you guys are just both kind of pounding body blows to each other.
Yeah, no, I think he was still trying to get lined up the first couple shots. That's where he had 2 spares in the 2nd and 3rd, and then after that, once he got lined up, he didn't really miss. I was pretty much lined up for the most part of the match. I just a couple breaks here and there didn't carry, but it was a good match. Good ball, good.
And you had the good win over Mike Zarcone. Always good to beat one of the best guys in town, right?
Yeah, I was looking forward to that. He's a great bowler, so it was fun bowling against him.
All right, well, take a little bit of that. Enjoy the start of your new year, and
thank you, you too.
Hopefully we get you back here on the show soon.
Definitely.
Kevin Smith with an impressive performance, but it's Rocket Rob Piccoli that's moving on. Match number 3 from the Rapids Bowling Center on Beat the Champ coming up next. It's match number 3, week number 2 here at the Rapids Bowling Center, and Jeff Pullman will be the guy to try to knock off our returning winner, Rocket Rob Piccoli, and advance to next week's show. And Jeff is a veteran bowler here on Beat the Champ. This will be his 11th appearance on the show. Just a good, solid, steady bowler who does everything right. And will that be enough to overcome the speed advantage that Rob has in this one? We'll find out.
Jeff's got pretty good speed himself. Like I said, these guys are pretty close. Jeff opens the lane up a little bit more, not quite as direct, but you can see there's a wide area of difference between the way they're playing. And when we go to the sports shot, you won't see that so much. You're going to see people playing the lanes very, very similar. Where here on the open house shot, you can kind of play where you're comfortable.
Yeah, of course we're house shot right now, but it'll be the more difficult oil pattern coming up in next month's shows from right here at the Rapids Bowling Center.
Yeah, and we'll try to get a picture of that next month to show the difference in the patterns.
Yeah, I think that's something we're going to try to start doing a little more here. New innovation for you in 2019 is illustrate what the oil patterns actually look like. We talk so much about it. Want to be able to show you sort of where the oil is on the lanes, moving down the lanes, and where it lightens up, where it accumulates, and then you can talk to everybody about how the balls will react to that.
Right. That's the interesting thing about, the sports shot. Like from house to house to house, the characteristics of the house will end up coming through, depending on how old they are, what kind of surface it is. But the oil pattern that's set down is generally close from house to house to house. House patterns tend to be very similar. When you get to these sport patterns, believe it or not, the house condition will play a factor in it too, so we'll talk about that when that comes up, because again, the characteristics of how the lanes are oiled on a regular basis tend to still shine through. But because you cannot see it, that's what makes it so challenging.
Right. I think that's one of the we probably one of the cool parts about this sport, and you bring it up all the time, is you can't see it. It's how many other sports are there where your challenge is invisible?
Right.
That you have to guess what it is and where it is and react to it.
You have to react to your own skills. So you have to throw a ball down there, understand what you're doing, what that ball is doing, and then use that to figure out what the lane condition is and what you should do next.
Right.
And that's the part of this game that makes it a sport.
Yeah.
Because you can do it the other way. You can just go out there and throw balls around and try to get down as many pins as possible. But when it gets to the point where it's a competition and you're trying to win money and you're looking to excel, these are things you're going to have to understand.
45-year-old Jeff Pullman from Clarence Center, New York, is started with a pair of strikes. Jeff is a teacher at the Westminster Community Charter School and just a long-time bowler and part of a great bowling family, and learned from his dad. And interestingly enough, the first ever winner 4 years ago when we started this show at the Rapids Bowling Center was Joe Pullman, Jeff's brother.
Who's out in the audience watching right now.
So it's pretty cool, and I know you know the family very well, and you bowl with the guys and all the time, and they're just a great group of folks who bowling is a part of who they are and what they are.
Right, and now all the kids have started bowling, and now it's another generation down, all of their children. I can't keep track of who belongs to who because they all bowl together all the time, but they're all old enough now to bowl in adult leagues, and they're very, very good bowlers. Tradition goes on.
That's great. There's Janelle Saban and the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard that shows 3 strikes to start things off for Jeff Pullman and a pair of spares for Rocket Rob Piccoli. And he finally gets that pin to slide over and take out the 4 for his first strike of the match.
We've definitely had another one of those months where it's been hard to maintain any type of, keeping your streak going.
I was just thinking of that. Pat Brick comes in as the winner. Ricky Zanone beats him, wins the second match, but then loses to Mike Zarcone. Mike Zarcone comes into this week's show, loses to Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith then loses to Rob,
right.
And now Rob is facing Jeff. So we've had one bowler win more than one match in a row
right.
so far.
And
it just goes a little bit. I feel like Rapids has always lent itself to a little more good streaks if you're bowling well.
Right, because we had Kevin. We had a long streak that was here.
Mike Zarcone won 6 in a row here. Kevin Bianco won 6 in a row here as part of a 10 overall match winning streak that included some wins at Alley Brandt, and then actually started at Alley Brandt, and then 4 there, and then 6 here back in 2017. Even Jeremy Zimmerman's 14 match winning streak, which is the record on Beat the Champ. 2 of those wins came here at the Rapids after, actually, correction. He won 3 at Rapids, 9 in a row at Classic, and then came back and won 2 more at Rapids.
And I'm surprised actually not to see Jeremy on the show, because this is a place that definitely suits his style of game. And I think that might be why we're seeing the changes, because a lot of people that made the show are similar styles. So somebody isn't really getting a great advantage here.
So each of our 3 longest winning streaks, all double digits in the history of our return to Beat the Champ, all part of them have had some role here at the Rapids Bowling Center. That's 5 in a row to start things off for Jeff Pullman.
And another thing to recognize is the people coming in get these long streaks going. Like the bowlers that have not bowled on this pair yet seem to come in and get the streaks, which seems like the people that have been on the condition is seeing a change, which is causing them to have to move. Do you know what I mean? The shot must be changing just a little bit, enough to throw off the person who has already been lined up.
And that's a nice strike, 3rd in a row for the 33-year-old from Kenmore, Rocket Rob Piccoli.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
So it's an open in the 7th frame for Jeff Pullman. Don't forget, qualifying continues for next month's Beat the Champ shows, which will be right here again at the Rapids Bowling Center. And the top qualifier in the round of 24 wins a television valued at $500 from Dirt Cheap TV. So that's a big door opener for Rocket Rob Piccoli now here as he moves to the 7th frame.
So a double here will actually put Rob ahead of Jeff if he can strike here on the next 2 shots.
There's one of them. That's just that's the craziness of this sport. You know, Jeff starts out with 5 straight strikes, looks unbeatable, and hits a little bit of a lull there, and all of a sudden now all Rob needs is
just
another strike to take the lead.
Just one bad shot. And sometimes the lanes change on you as you go, and it's not as bad a shot as the result might make you think. But that's the danger with Jeff. He's opening the lane up a little bit. He's deep on the lane, but he's still going left to right, where you can look at Rob's projection is completely down and in, definitely right to left.
And that one never really turned the way he wanted it to turn either.
Well, that's the lane he had to make the move on, so he's a little bit deeper on the lane than he is on 30, and he's running into a quirky reaction now because he had to move.
A little under 18 miles per hour on that throw, on that roll from Rocket Rob.
Good spare.
Even though I feel like Rob in particular is not really trying to power the ball down the lanes, he's still putting up some of the better speeds we've seen here. Even though it just doesn't look like it, right?
He's not throwing it as hard as he can.
We've seen him throw the ball much harder.
Now his speed becomes an issue because he's moving more into the oil, because he's kind of burnt out the spot that he was in, and that's where we're seeing the issues on lane 29. He's going to have to soften up a little bit.
All right, Jeff's got to bounce back from the open. Lots of pin action, but not enough to take the 4 down.
So what's happening is they're breaking down a little bit for Jeff, but it's too late in the match to start messing around with changing things up too much. So he's trying to make little adjustments without having to make a wholesale change here in the 8th frame. And another one of the obstacles we face as bowlers.
Well, right. Your gut tells you that you need to make a change, but then you have to make a strategic decision whether it's the right time to do it or not.
Right. I mean, he's got a 6-pin lead.
Particularly when you have the lead.
And 2 frames to go.
Yeah, it's one thing to make changes if you're
And he
trying to
started
play
off with
catch-up.
the front 5,
Yep.
and that was only 2 frames ago.
Yep. Yeah.
You got to be careful not to overthink it too.
Yeah. So after that front 5, as you mentioned, Jeff has gone spare, open, spare in 6, 7, and 8 as he lines up for frame 9 on lane 29.
He's definitely moved his speed in a little bit. He's got to catch a little bit more oil in the fronts. Yep, moved in.
There you go. Much needed strike
Yep.
in the 9th frame.
That's one of those situations there where you really have to trust your shot and throw the ball as well as you possibly can, even though you're not 100% sure what's going to happen, because you're going to get a bad read if you don't, and he did exactly that, and it worked out well. Those light hits have good carry here too, so you know you have that little bit of extra margin for error. So if you hit light, you get the nice swishing hit here.
Big strike in the 9th for Rocket Rob Piccoli to keep this one tight.
Right, here's one of those situations where as the leadoff bowler, he got to choose where he wanted to finish. And he made that decision based on what he saw in the game before this. But as the lanes have broken down and how this has played out, 29 has actually become a little bit of a problem for him. He's struggling a little bit trying to figure that one out. And he's chosen to finish on it. And I don't think he anticipated this lane would break down and be problematic for him. 30 has stayed consistent for him. 29 has forced him into a different zone.
Well, we've heard a little bit of griping about 29. Mike Zarcone said struggled a little bit on the left side lane. So there's always seems to be one side or the other that gives guys a little more trouble, and it appears to be that 29 is the one that's messing with the guys a little bit more.
It broke down just enough. I mean, it's still got good ball reaction, but it's broke down just enough to change his angle of entry.
So second ball in the 10th frame is a spare for Rocket Rob, and he'll have one more to try to position himself to win this match. Meanwhile, Jeff will know exactly what he needs to do, and so will you as you watch the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard.
Right, so because he did not strike on that ball, he is... All Jeff has to do now is spare and decent count.
So it's a 217 on the board for Rob. So a spare and count. That's how I do my math.
Right.
Scratch my head a
Well,
little
spare's
bit.
going to put him 220. Spare strikes 224. That would give him a 7-pin win. Strike here will put it away.
So let's see if Jeff can rise to the occasion and get himself a win in advance to next week's show. Strike will win it. And there it is, and a big clap of the hand and celebration for Jeff Pullman, who will get the victory over Rocket Rob Piccoli to continue our streak of win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. That's how we got through this week's show, pretty much with no one able to win 2 in a row, and that will be the challenge now for Jeff Pullman when he moves on to next week's show. So it's a win for Jeff Pullman over Rocket Rob Piccoli. We'll talk to both guys and preview our 3rd week show here at the Rapids Bowling Center when Sue and I return to Niagara Falls. It's Beat the Champ in the Falls. We're back right after this. 244 to 217 is a win for Jeff Pullman over Rocket Rob Piccoli. Boy, it's a little bit of the sport of bowling when in your previous match you end with 9 consecutive strikes, and then in this one, things just don't come as easy, do they?
No, I'm striking a little more oil on the ball, so it's sliding just a bit into the pocket, and that's what's causing me to leave the 10 pins. But Jeff bowled a great game. I enjoy competing against him. So it's always fun.
Yeah, the way he started kind of set the tone a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Put a little pressure on you?
Not too much. But I can handle it.
All right, well, I know you can. I hope you can handle that as well, too. It's always good to have you on the show. Rocket Rob's been a pretty steady competitor here, but I know Jeff Pullman would like to make it even more steady.
Jeff, from the broadcast table over there, it almost looked like the lanes started to change a little bit on you during the match. Did that happen?
Yeah, I was, from watching the previous matches, I was worried about the left lane, but it was actually the right lane that started breaking down for me, and I tried throwing it a little harder for my first shot, another tight 4, and then I just moved off of that and got 3 in the 10th. But Rob bowled a great match, and he's a tough competitor always.
It really looked like who was going to actually figure it out first, and in your case, you came ahead of there. But it was awesome watching you win, and good luck next month.
Be on the winning side of the foursome.
Yeah,
Good job.
From the very first win in 2016 to our first show of year number 4, it's just all about the Pullmans coming up with victories, isn't it?
Yeah, we had to expect a Pullman to be here, didn't we?
That's right. Jeff Pullman with the win means he'll advance to next week's show. Sue and I will preview that when we wrap things up here. Week number 2 at the Rapids Bowling Center. More to come right after this. I'm still trying to figure out why this place, the place of our best winning streaks, just won't allow anybody to put a couple of them together.
I know, we've got one more week left, and so we can get one streak started, but that's about it.
All right, so Jeff Pullman's going to advance on to next week's show. Tom Kress, Chuck Jagosinski, Chris Labiak, some really good bowlers are going to be the guys that'll challenge them.
Right, if you look at it that way, it's going to be a tough week to start a streak because there's some strong bowling ahead.
Yeah, well, you may be doing a lot of erasing of names on the big Castellon scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, I like seeing all these new faces and new winners, but it is also nice to have somebody with a winning streak, see that guy going hot, you know?
All right, well, we'll find out. Can Jeff Pullman do it? Can he become the first guy this month to put some wins together? You'll have to tune in next week when we'll all find out on the next edition of Beat the Champ.